What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and today, I guess you could say, is another day of a double dip with two uploads in one day. Lucky you guys, I guess you could say. With my 32 NFL previews, day number 21. If you haven't watched that video, link will be down below in the description. In this video, I should be saying, I'll be looking at and previewing the first round of the NBA playoffs, because that's right, they start today. I'm going to be going series by series, giving some analysis for each team, and then ultimately giving my prediction for that playoff series and who I think will come out victorious. So, without further ado, let's get started with the Lakers versus the Portland Trail Blazers. And looking at the Lakers first, after what was a disappointing season in 2019, Los Angeles has bounced back in a major way. LeBron James is well rested, and although he has struggled somewhat in the bubble, one has to expect that he will take his game to another level in the playoffs. The addition of Anthony Davis has been great for this team, as he has proved that he can be a matchup nightmare for any of the Lakers' opponents. Kyle Kuzma has emerged as a possible third scoring option when James and Davis are not on the floor, which is what the Lakers have been trying to find all season long. The one thing is now the Lakers will need to have to find guys like Danny Green, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Dion Waiters, Alex Caruso, etc., and they'll need to perform at a relatively decent level just to provide options for LeBron to drive and kick to, or when LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the bench. The loss of Avery Bradley has proved to be important for this Lakers team as they lose a valuable guard defender, and we'll see what type of impact that will have going deeper into the postseason. Rajon Rondo is rumored to be coming back sometime during the postseason, from a broken hand, but who knows what kind of shape he will be in. The key for the Lakers is just to make anyone but Damian Lillard try to beat them. The Lakers will have to defend against the three at a much better rate, as the Blazers have the third best three-point shooting percentage as a team at 37.7%. But if they could force Damian Lillard to dish the ball out and just make guys like CJ McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, Gary Trent Jr., etc. beat them, I think they have a very good chance, because although the Lakers went 2-1 during their season series with Portland this year, in those three games, Lillard averaged 36 points per game, 9 assists per game, and 6 rebounds per game while shooting over 50% from the field and 39.4% from three. So who will guard Lillard will be very interesting. Speaking about Portland, their run to even get to the playoffs has been amazing, and that all starts and ends with Damian Lillard, who was named Bubble MVP for his performance, averaging nearly 37 points per game inside the Orlando bubble, leading the Blazers to this point, scoring 31 in Portland's play-in game win against the Memphis Grizzlies on Saturday. The thing for Portland is that they're most likely going to be playing on an empty tank, which is why I don't give them much of a chance to take down the top-seeded Lakers. Lillard is averaging over 41 minutes per game during these 9 games thus far in Orlando. CJ McCollum is playing on basically a broken back, so who knows what his status is. Yusuf Nurkic is still getting his legs under him after missing over a year from basketball, recovering from injury. Zach Collins doing the same. He's missed a lot of time with injury. The list goes on and on and on, and that's why I feel like the Lakers will have a relatively quick work of the Blazers. The one other point to note is that I'm concerned is who will carry the scoring load when Lillard and McCollum are on the bench. That is something that is rather unclear. Will it be Carmelo Anthony? Will it be Nurkic? Will it be Trent Jr.? I just don't know who that will be. So I think the Lakers have a significant advantage. Don't get me wrong, though. Damian Lillard can have a remarkable performance in 1 or 2 games, but I just don't think it will be enough. So in the end, I had the Lakers winning 4-1 over Portland in 5 games. The second series I'll look at is we'll go to 2-7 matchup in the Western Conference, Clippers versus the Mavericks. Looking at LA first, when the bubble started, they could have possibly dropped to the 3 seed, which definitely would have changed some things in terms of their opponents and probably not for the better. But now as a 2 seed, the Clippers take on a Dallas team who they swept this season, going 3-0, including 1 game in the bubble in which they won by 15 points. The key for the Clippers will be to slow down Luka Doncic. This year, Luka is averaging 29 points per game, 9.4 rebounds per game, 8.8 assists per game. Just overall, he's been really, really good, and you just got to tip your cap to Luka. But hopefully for the Clippers, all the load management of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George pays off, because one of my biggest questions with this team is the chemistry in terms of playing together on the court. There has not been a whole lot of time where Leonard, George, Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, the projected 5 starters for this Clippers team, have played together. And given the fact that Leonard and George, one of them, if not both, maybe even Beverley, will be guarding Luka Doncic, it's going to be they're going to have to exert a lot of energy on that end. So it's going to need guys like a Landry Shamet, like a Ivica Zubac, et cetera, to step up. The most likely reason the Clippers lose this series is simply because they have not played much time together, as at least for their core guys during the course of the season. Harrell just returned to play from the bubble after dealing with some injuries. Williams had the whole Magic City Wings incident, and we don't know what how he's been. Like that I think had a mental toll on him, because I don't think he's played all that great, at least in my opinion. And then Beverley has missed some time as well. Shifting gears to Dallas, I mean, they had a remarkable chance at the start of this bubble, and I think they personally blew it. They could have jumped up multiple seeds. They were like, I think 4 games or something like that back of the 3 seed, and they could have greatly improved their situation. I get it, there's no home court advantage, but just to have the confidence of we're the favorites here, I think can be something that is very helpful for them. Ultimately, they went 3-5 in the 8 games, and although Luka Doncic balled out, it was simply not enough. This Mavs team will go as far as Luka Doncic carries them, and especially with a possible heel injury to Kristaps Porzingis, although the team feels that he is nothing serious and then he'll be ready for the playoffs. Who really knows of a guy with his size? In the 8 games in Orlando prior to the playoffs, Doncic played in 7 of those games, averaging 30 points, 9.7 assists, and 10.1 rebounds per game. The guy is just on a tear, so that's similar to Damian Lillard. Who knows how much he has left in the tank? That'll be interesting to see. But, and especially since he'll have to deal with a Kawhi, a Paul George, a Patrick Beverley in terms of who's guarding him, Luka's going to have a lot of work to do. But if he can get rolling, the Mavericks can give the Clippers at least a scare. The other guy who I think needs to be played a lot is Boban Marjanovic. The guy we saw in that final game in the regular season against the Suns. He can just get a rebound and just dunk it without jumping. When the Clippers go small, if they go small, Boban could feast, and I think that could be a huge helper for them. I don't know why the Mavericks don't play him as much, especially given the mismatch he creates. But that'd be something I think head coach Rick Carlisle should definitely take advantage of. Ultimately, however, I have the Clippers winning this series as well, 4-1 over Dallas. Third series I'll look at, we'll go to the 3-6 matchup, Denver Nuggets taking on the Utah Jazz. Looking at Denver first, Denver has arguably had one of the most unique bubble experiences of any team. They come down to start. They didn't even have 10 guys, so they couldn't do 5-on-5 practices. A lot of their guards were missing. They were dealing with various issues, maybe recovering from COVID-19, other injuries, etc. And they're still missing some of their starters. Will Barton and Gary Harris have yet to play because of injuries and whatnot. But with that, it has opened up opportunities for guys like Michael Porter Jr. and Bol Bol. For Porter Jr. especially, he has seized this opportunity really well, averaging 22 points per game and 8.6 rebounds per game and shooting a little bit better than 55% from the field in the bubble. He will now most likely get the starting nod for this team in the postseason and could prove to be a mismatch for the Jazz's wings. Denver also has obviously Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who have performed well and some other pieces that has his team as being the 3 seed in the West. My one concern with Denver is that how will they defend against a 3-ball? Utah is second in the league in team 3-point shooting this season, so if they get going, that could really open a paint for Rudy Gobert or even a driving Donovan Mitchell. And Jokic, I don't think he's the type of defender that can defend against a heavy paint attack if the Jazz get going in that end. The key for Denver will be how they bring back guys like Harris and Barton, among others, back into the fold, as they have not played an NBA game since March. So you got the emergence of guys like Bol and Michael Porter Jr., but you still got some solid players in Harris and Barton. Mike Malone's going to have a tough task of giving out minutes and not letting anyone get too upset, like, oh, God, you're playing this guy over me, getting guys discouraged. Looking at Utah in the bubble has been a major disappointment for me. They have gone 3-5 in the seeding games, but looking at those 3 wins, they beat a New Orleans team that opted not to play Zion Williamson down the stretch. They beat a Spurs team who although it had something to play for, didn't play like they did and rested DeMar DeRozan, Patty Mills, Rudy Gay, and Derek White. And then they defeated the Memphis team, which actually was a kind of pretty solid win for the Jazz. This season, the Jazz are 0-3 versus Nuggets, but losing their 3 matchups by a combined 11 points. My one concern with the Jazz is with Denver's newfound length, will Utah be able to keep up? The Nuggets have 9 guys who are 6'8" or taller on their roster. The Jazz just have 3. And that's the one that's obviously eye-popping for Utah is Rudy Gobert. If Gobert gets into foul trouble during a game, that opens up opportunity for guys like Bol, Jokic, Porter Jr. and company to feast inside the paint. And I think that'll be a very difficult hole for the Jazz to dig themselves out of. The other thing for Gobert, he really has not been the defensive presence and force that we have grown to accustomed to with him. So that's why I think if he could turn that around, the Jazz have a great chance. But I think he just needs to focus on the defensive end. Let guys like Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, Mike Conley do all the work on the offensive end. Gobert, just do what he does best, play defense, and just dominate in the paint, because that has worked well for the Jazz in the past. The Jazz tried to avoid the Rockets by intentionally losing, or at least that's what people think they did, and the plan might have backfired as they get a Nuggets team that looks to be really, really good. So once again, I have the top seed winning, with Denver winning 4-1. Fourth matchup I'll look at out of the 8. Final matchup in the West, the 4-5 matchup, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets. This is the matchup of all the 8 in the first round I am most excited for. Looking at the Thunder, after being traded from the Rockets to OKC, Chris Paul has had a resurgence in 2020, averaging 17.6 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 6.7 assists per game. And although his numbers are down in the bubble, he is still providing a nice veteran presence for the squad. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Dennis Schroeder both have emerged into nice young point guards in the NBA, and Gilgeous-Alexander especially has emerged into a star, probably going to be an all-star soon under the mentorship of Paul, and is the future of this franchise. Schroeder, he's probably going to be the 6th man of the year, and I think Paul has a major factor in that. It'll be interesting to see how the Thunder play against the Rockets in their small ball lineup, as Steven Adams does play a key role for this OKC squad. Do they use him to be a dominant force in the paint to just bully guys like PJ Tucker or Daniel House? Or will the Thunder go small as well to keep up with the speed and quickness of the Houston Rockets? The Rockets are known for shooting a lot of threes, and the Thunder are one of the best teams defending against a three, allowing 34% to their opponents from 3. These two teams are very interesting. The Thunder don't turn the ball over a lot. The Rockets feast on transition. The Thunder operate in the mid-range a lot. The Rockets enjoy 3-point shooting. The Thunder, they don't foul a lot. James Harden, he's one of the best at drawing fouls, so it'll be very interesting to see. In 3 matchups this season against the Rockets, the Thunder are 2-1 and have held Houston to 22.7% shooting from 3 in their first matchup, 27.5% shooting from 3 in their second, and 20% from 3 in their third matchup back in January. Although the Thunder are the higher seed, they are probably viewing themselves as the underdog, and I think that will bode well for them. Looking at Houston, the Rockets are in a bit of a sticky situation entering the playoffs, as Russell Westbrook, who played his entire career up until this season for the Thunder, will miss the start of the playoffs with a quad strain. Who knows how many games that means? Will it be 1, 2, 3? I don't know. But it will be interesting to see how much time he misses. But I'm interested in seeing what type of impact this injury will have on Westbrook's explosiveness, as that is a patented part of his game. Will he play a little bit more gingerly? That's something whether or not I'll be wondering. It's going to be on James Harden's shoulders to carry this team while Westbrook is out. Harden was the league's leading scorer, averaging 34 points per game this season. In 6 games in the bubble, Harden is averaging over 35 points per game. There is a reputation regarding Harden that he performs well in the regular season, but underperforms in the postseason because he is relatively exhausted. He's had so much time to rest during the layoff. So if he underperforms this season, I feel that the Rockets should seriously consider moving on from Harden, because he has not been able to carry this team to a finals yet in his tenure since 2013. And I don't know if he ever will. This might be his best team around him. And the other thing I think the Rockets should consider, if they don't make it past the first round, getting rid of Mike D'Antoni, because clearly it works. His system works well in the regular season, but doesn't bode well for playoff success. And if I'm D'Antoni, I would go with deeper bench, deeper rotation. Usually he plays about 6 or 7, maybe 8 guys at the most during the playoffs. I think he needs to go 9, 10 deep if he can, just to give the Rockets a chance to allow guys like Harden to rest. My prediction, though, once again, all chalk in the Western Conference. I had the Thunder winning 4-3. So 7-game series in this one should be a fun one if Westbrook comes back healthy. Shifting gears to the Eastern Conference. We'll go first with the 1-8 matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Orlando Magic. And frankly, I don't give the Magic much of a chance here. Just given what Milwaukee did to Detroit last season in the 1-8 matchup. The Bucks have arguably been the most dominant team in the league all season long, and although they came out a little bit flat during the seeding games, the Bucks really did not have to play well because they had the number 1 seed basically on lock. Giannis Antetokounmpo is most likely going to be the league MVP for the second straight season, and although on the floor he is great, we saw in the bubble that he does have a bit of a temper with a headbutt on the Washington center Mo Wagner, and he has to keep that in check because the Bucks are a completely different team when he is on the floor versus off the floor, and if he lets his temper get the best of him, that could be trouble for the Bucks. The Magic could steal a game because they are a feisty team. The onus will be on guys like Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, Brook Lopez, and company to step up because if the Bucks underperform this postseason, whether it's this round or later, don't be surprised if Giannis opts to leave Milwaukee in free agency in 2021. The Bucks defense is arguably one of the best in the entire league, and that showed in their 4 matchups with Orlando, while Milwaukee went 4-0, holding the Magic to just under 97 points per game. In the modern NBA, where teams score boundless amounts of points. Shifting gears to the Magic. Last season, the Magic were able to steal a game in the Raptors in the first round, which has some eager to see what they'll do against the Bucks, but the Raptors are a completely different team than Milwaukee. The thing with Orlando is that they are going to have to play nearly to perfection, especially given how injury-riddled their roster is. Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba, are both out for the remainder of the bubble with injuries. Aaron Gordon is dealing with a hamstring injury. Evan Fournier is dealing with some injuries of his own, and it goes on. The key for the Magic will be to be efficient on their threes. The Bucks allow the most three-point field goals in the entire NBA. The issue, however, is that Orlando, they are 25th in three-point shooting percentage at 34.3%, so they just got to be knocking them down. I think the Disney Magic has worn out for Orlando as simply they just won't be able to slow Giannis down. You're not going to upset the Bucks in the first round. It's going to come in the second or third round. So, unfortunately for Orlando and their fans, I have the Bucks sweeping the Orlando Magic 4-0. Going to the 2-7 matchup, Toronto versus the Nets versus Brooklyn. So a matchup of the Atlantic Division. The defending NBA champion Toronto Raptors enter this playoffs playing really well, winning 7 of their 8 seeding games leading up to the postseason, and they have shown they're willing to fight tooth and nail all season. That starts with Kyle Lowry. Lowry has proven to be the leader of this team, and everyone seems to follow him, which shows how tight this unit is. Statistically, the Raptors are led by Pascal Siakam, who is emerging into one of the top players in the entire NBA. He will need to have a good playoffs in order to cement himself as one of those top players, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I mean, the guy, he was an all-star this year, just been playing out of his mind. Toronto is one of the best teams in transition, so if they can get out and run, it will be a long series for Brooklyn. My one concern is the Nets are a resilient team and will fight tooth and nail until the end. So Toronto will have to stay disciplined when the Nets wave comes because we know, at least we saw it. If you watch that game against Portland, Brooklyn, they can go on a little bit of a run. And that could, if you don't keep focused, that could bode, it won't be good for them. Shifting gears to Brooklyn, given that the Nets entered the bubble with the majority of their team opting not to play, the Nets smashed expectations. They went 5-3 in the 8 seeding games, but that includes their final seeding game against Portland, where they had nothing left to play for in terms of seeding, and they took the Blazers down to the wire, losing 134 to 133, and missed a Caris LeVert runner at the end. That game showed the fight this Nets team has, and that stems from their interim head coach, Jacques Vaughn, who took over for this team after the firing of Kenny Atkinson earlier this season. Caris LeVert has carried this roster in the bubble, averaging 23.3 points per game, 6.6 assists, and 4.8 rebounds in 6 games in the bubble. LeVert has been dealing with a quad injury, but if he is dialed in, I don't see why he can't carry this team even further than the first round. If the Nets can get going from 3, they will have an opportunity to steal a game or 2 from the Raptors. So in 4 matchups this year, Toronto has performed better than the Nets, winning 3 of 4 matchups. Nets going 1-3. In their 3 losses, however, Brooklyn lost the first game by 8, the second game by 19, and their third game by 1. So there's something about these 2 teams where I think Brooklyn actually has somewhat of a chance. So I'm going to give the Raptors a 4-2 series win. But it's going to be a lot closer than 4-2. I think people are going to, when I mean a lot closer, it's going to look a lot closer. A lot of close games. Shifting to the 3-6 matchup. 2 more to go. I know we're going very, very quickly here. Or relatively quickly. Celtics versus the 76ers. Boston. This will be a very interesting series. The Celtics and Sixers entering this season were viewed as title favorites, and now here we are after the roller coaster season that has been. In 4 matchups, the Celtics went just 1-3 against Philly, but I think the Celtics are peaking at the right time compared to the 76ers. The key for Boston will be slowing down Joel Embiid, especially in the absence of Ben Simmons. In 3 games against the Celtics this season, Embiid averaged 21.3 points per game and 10.3 rebounds per game, and those were all games where Ben Simmons played. With Simmons out with injuries, the 76ers will most likely turn to Embiid to carry them. Given the lack of big man depth on the Celtics, it will be a committee of sorts when it comes to guarding Embiid. So if the Celtics get into foul trouble, it's going to be a tough game or games for them. Jason Tatum will be tasked with providing the majority of the scoring for the Celtics team and will need to channel some of that magic he had his rookie season where he dominated in the playoffs, carrying the Brooklyn Nets, the Boston Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals. Shifting gears to Philly, the Ben Simmons injury will ultimately be this team's downfall as he played a major role for them this season, as he is one of the few guys in the NBA who's just completely unguardable given his size and strength. He's an elite defender as well and is great in transition, which is what the 76ers will surely miss. With the absence of Simmons, Al Horford has played a majority of the minutes alongside Joel Embiid at power forward spot, which is something I am not a big fan of for this team. I think Horford clogs the lane for Embiid to operate and has played rather terribly all season long. Although Philly won the series matchup, like I said, those were all games where Simmons played really, really well. The 76ers are going to have to knock down their 3-point shots, so to have any chance as they stretch the floor and allow Embiid to operate. If the Sixers fail to do so, Boston can focus more of their attention on Embiid, and it's going to be tough. Tobias Harris has not looked great for most of this season and will now have to most likely guard Tatum, which is a matchup which really favors Boston in my opinion. I think Philly does not stand much of a chance to win this series as the Celtics have too many really good guards and wings to fluster the 76ers and stifle any solid game by Embiid. I do think, however, that if Philadelphia can win a game or 2, but something tells me that Brett Brown will be most likely looking for a job at series end. So my prediction is Boston wins 4-2, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7 games. This series is another one I'm really excited for. The 4-5 matchup in the West, Houston and Oklahoma City, and then this one, Philadelphia and Boston. Those are the 2 series I think will most likely go to 7 games and will be fun to watch. Finally, we got the 4-5 matchup in the Eastern Conference, the Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat. Starting with Indiana, what sucks for them is that they really got screwed by injuries. Victor Oladipo has not been himself all season. His status is up in the air for the playoffs. Domantas Sabonis hasn't played at all in the bubble. And by the way, he was a first-time All-Star this year. He's out for the season with a foot injury. Sure, TJ Warren has played immensely well in the bubble, but he missed the Pacers' last 2 games in the seeding games with a foot injury, which is concerning. And if we dive deeper into Warren's play in the bubble, he really did not perform well in a game that meant the most. That rematch against the Heat back on August 10th, where he was shut down by Jimmy Butler, scoring just 12 points. I think Butler will be seeking out Warren, and I don't think he, as in Warren, will be able to live up to the hype. My one question for this team is after Warren, who is their second option on offense? Miles Turner, I'm not really sure if he can carry an offense. Malcolm Brogdon has not been up to snuff in the bubble as his plus-minus is atrocious for the most part. And what sucks for Indiana and their fans is that Had they been fully healthy, I think they could have seriously given the Heat a run for their money, but that is just simply not the case. Looking at Miami, they've had a dream season in 2020. After Jimmy Butler signed in free agency, he has taken on a role of being a mentor to the younger players on this team and has really embraced the Miami Heat culture that is so well talked about in the NBA. It helps that guys like Bam Adebayo have emerged into all-stars, as he is in the front runner for most improved player of the year, averaging 15.9 points per game, 10.2 rebounds, 5.1 assists, 1.1 steals, and 1.3 blocks per game, all of which are career highs. The Heat have also some really nice young players in guys like Rookie of the Year finalist Kendrick Nunn and knockdown shooters Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. All three of those guys have played meaningful minutes for this Miami team and have blended nicely with some of the veterans on the squad like Butler, Adebayo, Goran Dragic, Myers Leonard, and Kelly Olynyk. And then, not to mention, right before the trade deadline, the Heat made a trade for Andre Iguodala, Solomon Hill, and Jay Crowder from Memphis, which I think has had a positive impact for this team as it gives them even more wing depth to compete with some of the top teams in the league. Got teams like Milwaukee, the LA teams, Dallas, Denver, Toronto, etc. All teams with really solid guards and wings. I think the Heat are primed to have success in this series against Indiana, especially given Miami's 3-1 regular series record against the Pacers. Also, the Heat are a significantly deeper roster and more experienced team than the Pacers, which bodes well for them. Ultimately, I have Miami winning this series 4-1. But let me know what y'all think down below in the description. I know this was a long video of me just straight talking, but I'm very excited. Glad that playoff basketball is finally here. Let me know what y'all think down below in the comment section. What are your series predictions for each of the 8 series? And should I do another preview for the second round of the NBA playoffs? I probably will. But let me know what y'all think down below. I greatly appreciate your feedback. So until then, see you next time and have a great day.